judging, last about
this is
10
we wanted
minutes,
to
and
talk
I think it was all the dust in the library.
Coronavirus
And I just started,
could we do it?
boom,
today
boom,
on
sneeze,
Thursday?
sneeze, and out.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting when allergy season hits and it's going
Oh,
to.
it's already is.
Yeah, you're gonna
Dust
see
in the
people
library.
sniffling
Because I
and
know we can
things.
do
I
anything
can't do
within
the
24 hours.
dust, just.
But it's emergency,
See what
emergency,
happens.
I'm
because,
bad with
do we have any
Yeah.
field trips planned to Washington?
We do have field trips planned.
But those are in June.
They're pretty far down the road.
No, none during spring break?
None during
No.
spring break. I pulled the list of.
Close up kids are probably
We've
going
got
in
an
June.
Oakland trip and some Sacramento trips.
Yeah.
Those are in the next 3 weeks. That's what we have coming
But no Washington DC or science camp?
up. We have a science camp, but that's pretty far.
Okay.
They're kind of out in the
They're
wilderness.
out, yeah.
So we have nothing as far as this county?
We
Well-
don't have any. We have a couple Monterey Bay aquariums as well.
But no directive from the county as far as quarantine
Not yet, you never
or
know.
Well,
But it could
shutting down
change-
any
it could
meetings?
change tonight.
okay, I need to tell you that I was in that Friends, Library for Friends that was gonna be at San Juan Oaks.
Yeah, that was
They-
canceled.
That was canceled.
They're already going off of the 50 people or more. If there's any events, 50
Well, that's
people or
what I
more,
wanna
the
know about
arts
Arlo Harden.
something,
Monday night.
the arts something too, they had some sort of event, they canceled theirs as well.
Well, I don't know.
I know, we talked about it today, cause the board of
Yeah.
supervisors was voting on it today.
Do you know what we shouldn't even be discussing this in
I
reality.
know.
Not here.
Well, no, let's talk about non-school district business. So
Okay.
tell me, what happened at the board of supervisors meeting today?
Well, at least I know that that's on the agenda, for them to vote on it, so I figured once we, if it's approved by them, and I don't know if it was just being done for for funding, because it was already declared on
You have to
Friday,
adopt the resolution.
and the
in order to
resolution was
be
before the board of
eligible for
supervisors today for funding. But I don't know if that was also gonna dictate, like what Santa Clara put in place as far as restricting events and things of that nature. 'Cause-
Maybe I'll call Peter on the way home. By the way, Peter Hernandez had a new baby February.
Yeah.
I did not know!
Yeah, a little
Oh
girl.
my
That thing
gosh!
is the top, I mean, it looks like a doll, it's so tiny.
Yeah, she was
Hey,
5
here he is.
pounds.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even know they were
Yeah.
doing
Do it.
that!
Haven't done
That's
it,
so
but
good.
look at
Some
all
people
the
go
colors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
what?
my H is silent.
And they.
Yeah.
Well, I can't even remember his son's name, cause
Yeah.
it's
And
So
so
you just
Ezra.
Sit it down on the floor and.
Yeah,
little
and then
thing
you
was
have to, be in your underwear, but, you turn around like this in a
Princess
360
As-
degree.
Uh,
Sitting
Hi,
there.
Dale.
Hi, Dale.
Yes.
I can spell it out.
The
Yeah.
terms of an H and the H is silent.
My wife likes
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I
And
did.
you'll love the way they
No,
fit,
no,
that's the,
no,
for
no,
us,
Okay.
Literally,
I
it's
can't
like
beat
from
it.
here to
I am so
here.
Yeah, she's really
I
tight.
finally found something that fits.
Is she creamy?
Do it.
She was about not only 3 weeks old, but it was a power pregnancy from start to finish, so. And she was C-section. That's not what C-section.
No.
Yeah, so C-section, but, and then she had to go back to the hospital because. What do you call it, eclampsia?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's serious.
So-
No, the mom, they thought she was like,
Yeah, and, but she did.
I mean, you can hemorrhage, you can, there's a lot of
kinds of
things
stuff,
that
yeah.
come after, yeah.
Yeah, but they're being really weird, because like, she went to the
How many
hospital.
kids does he have?
Yes,
They have 2 little ones
Together,
now,
and-
and then they have 2 adult ones.
Yeah.
You
so
know,
it's 4,
second start.
Yeah.
So,
4 is a lot.
yeah.
oh, shoot.
5 is a lot.
How many do you have? Oh, thank you.
All right, we're gonna call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Mr. Romero, can we have a roll call?
Robert Bronowski,
Present.
Dan Chris,
present, and Carla's just pulling in.
Sorry, enough.
Stephen Kane,
Present.
Leslie Martinez,
Here,
Carla Torres de Luna,
Is opening her car door.
All right. You just want to slow it down. Let's stand and do the flag salute.
and the
Madam Clerk can lead us off.
Okay, ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and we approve the agenda now? So,
I'll make a motion that we
No.
approve
any
any public comments.
who is our facilities guy? Is that
Aaron.
Aaron?
It's the
Is he
flag
here
salute.
tonight?
Yes.
I know.
saw him right there.
Okay, so, is an item I'd like to hold this to discuss.
That's on the consent?
Yes, and it's just a question more or less, but, 9B.
9B.
So we can have a motion to approve the agenda with pulling 9B from consent.
So
Would anybody like to make that motion?
moved.
Would anybody like to second it? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Good afternoon. All right, any comments for closed session?
Nope.
All right, can I have a motion to convene the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0.
We'll see you in 45 minutes.
Bless you!
Bless
No.
Carla?
Hola. I'm coming.
All right,
I'm just bringing my agenda.
Yeah. Hey, before
Thank
oh,
you.
we can actually talk.
Sepita, I talked to her at 10 morning.
Okay, so what we'll do then, what I did, I practiced
They're like, whoa, budget.
Not what happens to that boring stuff.
It's like the most important, but. Feel like Manny and Gone with the Wind. Don't know nothing about no telephone system.
Oh, the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Rob's favorite?
Yeah.
That's Rob's
what he
favorite.
pulling. I'm
Oh,
like,
man.
I don't know nothing about no telephone system.
You went way back.
Where did this go?
Right into the bathroom.
Yeah,
Oh, I have a,
the executive lounge.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask. What did I ask?
We have no announcements for closed session.
No, 'cause I already got
That's right.
What's that?
That's right. Okay, yeah.
All right, we'll come in back to open session. We have nothing to report from closed session.
Yay.
Yeah, so, first item on the agenda is report on funding for school at Santana Ranch, otherwise known as Rancho Santana.
Yes. So, trying to keep it the same format as I'm going through, and I'll keep all that stuff together. I'm gonna change that for the next one though. So good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Ochoa. So I'm just gonna do a quick rundown of where we are right now with Rancho Santana and where we are with the finances. So this is the same slide that you saw the first time when I did this presentation about a year ago. Only thing that has changed is the change orders, and we'll have a couple of change orders that'll be coming up probably in 2 weeks, just relating to the delay in motorization stuff. We'll get a little bit more into that at that point. We're still kind of fleshing out the details of it. So right now we're looking at a total of 51.705 million, and that's including land, all the testing, the furniture, the school itself, everything is coming in at about 51.705 million. So here's how we're looking to cover it. Right now, Measure B, because we've been earning interest on that money, is sitting at 36,553,000. We have $13.868 million developer fees. That is including this piece of developer fees that we have already spent, which puts us into Measure M for about just a hair under 1.3. So this is taking a look at what we've already spent. Out of developer fees of just under $5.5 million. And that is for all the initial testing and approvals and everything we needed. And the land dirt mitigation piece that we had to purchase to build the school on. So we've spent 11.1 already on the actual building contract, so to auto construction. DSA, just to have the plans approved, was a little over $500,000. The continuing testing, monitoring approvals are looking like they're gonna be, between $450,000, $500,000. So, just because we've, since then we've had another invoice, since Friday we've had another invoice, so that's going a little bit over that. So roughly 17.6 million, which leaves us with about $34.1 million left to go. So here are our balances. Right now we have $3.4 million in Measure M, 24.45 in Measure B, so that's the bond we took out specifically for the school site. We have $8.4 million currently in cash sitting in developer fees for a total amount of resources at 36.25, which leaves us with $2.1 million left over at this point in Measure M. So we've gotten it, so basically in a nutshell, we've gotten enough in developer fees to reduce our reliance on Measure M to the extent of 2.1 million. So now we have $2.1 million of Measure M that's freed up for the district to use on other projects. Now, if the district does use some developer fees for, portables or something else, then that could, depending on how many developer fees we get in, increase the reliance on Measure M just a little bit more. So, to kind of sum all of that up, we have the money to finish the school, plus an excess of $2.1 million. So now, as Aaron goes through and takes a look at everything that needs to be done with the schools, and the board looks at whether those are priorities, we can start locking some of that stuff off. So these were some of the projects that were on the original list, just as reference. Rancho roof, the kitchen, bless you. The 3 gyms, obviously, locker rooms at Maze, some asphalt concrete repair, just those sorts of things. So this is where what was left on the last priority list. So when we're looking at other funding, so we do receive $2.5 to $3.5 million a year in developer fees. We're in line to receive $1 million, or just over actually, because of the way that they allocate the money. There's actually a little bit of an inflationary factor that they put on it. So probably about 1.2 million. Hopefully, crossing my fingers, it comes in May or June. If not, it will come when they send out the next wave of payments in the fall. After that, between now and about 24 to 26 months, we will be receiving about $15.5 million in state reimbursements.
So,
In how many months?
In the next 24 to 26 months.
So 2 years.
Yeah, roughly, could be a little bit over,
Gabe,
about
at
15.5.
our next meeting, can you just present a schedule by either year, by quarter, by month, of how much money we will have available for other projects that we can sort of count on, because
So once
then
Aaron's
I would
done.
like
Yeah.
us to sit down and go shopping all over.
Yeah.
Right.
And once Aaron's
So-
done with his evaluation, then we know for sure what we need to start hitting.
Right, so that's where things get difficult. So on the one hand, we know we have 2.1 million to play with right now, right? So we don't know exactly when we're gonna start seeing the state reimbursements for all the projects we've already done. We do know that they're gonna be here within the 2 years, but we don't know if it's gonna be 1.2 this spring, another few million in fall, or we won't see anything this spring, maybe a few million in fall, a couple million the next spring, and then more the following fall. It's the timing of that we're sort of uncertain about at this
Can you
point.
provide a table then and say, over the next 2 years, this is what we can,
Yeah.
here's what's for certain, and here's what's maybe, because I think we're all chomping at the bit here to get some of the improvements on the other sites. Or we make the decision, we're saving everything because we need a gym at, or a multipurpose room at, or we're gonna put X amount of reserves because we know we're gonna have to do roofs in the next 5 years. But we need to be able to make that decision, and we just don't have enough, I don't have enough clarity.
And to follow up on what he's saying, in that list that you're giving us, over the 2 years,
Mhm.
I'm not so much concerned when you think it's gonna come in. What I'd really like to know is what the percentage, in your opinion, of us getting that. Is it 100% for this? Is it 90%? Is it 50%? Is it 30%? Can you do that? Because I really
Yes,
like-
I can do that to the best of my ability. I mean,
Okay.
at this point, some of it is, somewhat up in the air. In terms of the 15.5, you're probably looking at more than 90% certain that
Okay.
we'll get
That's
that
what I need.
within those couple of years. However, the timing is what's unknown.
Okay, that's understandable.
There's a bunch of us. Is there any restriction, or can you tell us when you present that, any restrictions on the 15.5 or whatever the reimbursement?
Yeah, so this is where we start getting a little bit creative and start putting puzzle pieces together as to how we fund certain projects, because certain projects you can fund from certain places, some you can't. Like developer fees, for example, is very restricted, so if you want to put down portables, I say that developer fees is, you have a better argument that there's a nexus between what you're spending the money on and why you received it.
So it'd be nice to have like a table, like when you present, when we do just have developer fees, these are the restrictions, the 15.5.
Right. Yeah, and so school facilities consultants we've been speaking with about the reimbursement process. So I will get in touch with them again and see if there's any more clarity they can give me. At this point, the best information they had was sometime you're gonna be getting this. Now, the amount could vary by a small percentage, 5% or so, I don't even think as high as 10, but, a little bit. So I will get the best information I possibly can, just with the understanding that the state can change things and it'll be, within a certain, a certain margin of error.
And part of the reason, Jen, that the certainty level is so high is that there's a very rigorous process of meeting deadlines and submitting documentation and following their requirements in order to be considered in the queue. And once you're in the queue, you retain your place in line. Now, if you don't follow up, because it requires regular follow-up and regular updates and reports in order to remain in the queue, it really is just a matter of how quickly they can process all of the requests that are coming in. So the 15.5 million might actually be 4 or 5 different pieces. It isn't just one check for 15.5 million, it's this project at this school for this reason, and then this other project is 2.7 million and it comes in pieces like that.
So I will, I'll get you the best information I can.
So then, cause I know another district took out a loan to complete their project, because they had run out of money, and so,
The district here.
Yes, I believe it is.
Not naming names.
Not naming. Thank you. But anyway, because like you're saying, we're not sure when we're actually going to get, so they make their payments, but could that also, no?
I have heard, and I will double check again with school facilities consultants. I have heard that districts have lost some of their eligibility doing that, because part of what you're doing when you're going out to that to get that school funding or to get that state match is you're saying, we can't get money anywhere else, so we need to come to you. And when you go out and get a kind of loan like that, the state will come back to you and say, well, you can't get funding, you did, so you don't need money from us. So it's not unheard of.
That was a mistake.
I will run it by,
We don't need to do it, so
No,
let's
we
just forget about it.
okay,
Just not even think
Forget
If
about
that's the case, then
It's kind of like when you go shopping,
nix the option.
like, I don't have money for that dress.
Put on the credit card.
I'm not gonna buy it.
it. Okay, I have a couple questions. And this is in working with Aaron as well. The extra money that we're gonna get this year, we need our roofs fixed. So I'm just, I'm not a master of buildings, but I would think that we would wanna get our roofs fixed. And I don't know how many sites need to have that done. And I don't know what the cost is and if we even have enough money to get it done. But I would like to see that the first priority.
That's why I want the schedule,
Right.
because we don't know
Right.
with
Yeah.
certainty.
We can't decide.
Well, we only see one roof up here on the other projects, but if like Rob asked, if we could get some with the money that, you know, we're supposed to get this 1 million and then, you know, another, but if we could get that so that we can take care of what we need to take care of right away. That just makes sense, and then, you know, the locker rooms at Maze are a mess.
Let's wait for the schedule and get it on the,
Yeah.
get it on the agenda.
Well, they're not even,
Yeah.
they shouldn't even be used, so.
Yeah, so that last priority list was what was left from the last priority list of the board, so that's just all we have right now.
But I think there's more
until we
roofs,
redo
so,
it.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
but there is,
absolutely.
we talked about that,
Yeah.
there's several.
But I think that was the objective now that Aaron is here,
Yeah.
is, you know, let's look at what his evaluation is, he's the expert, and let's just go from that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
This is related because it has to do with the spending the money on here, but do we want to schedule another visit? I mean, if we were building our own homes, we'd be checking on
Yes,
contractor just to make sure that they're not doing something that
That's a good
we're all gonna
idea.
go like,
Eric,
I don't think Aaron would ever let that happen.
look, we tried to buy a house that is family owned and I'm telling you, we ran away from it because it was so hot, so. That's a true story, by the way.
I would like, honestly,
I would love
I would
to
like
see
to
a
just
visit.
go around with
Yeah.
Aaron and have an expert show me problem areas. And I agree with Jan, roofs, believe me, for my old job, I know how important they
Oh,
are.
yeah.
Oh, the
But
site visits, you mean?
Yeah, have him and
You
show
talking about
us
the new school?
specifically.
Well, I'm talking about the new school. Do we wanna go and just double check because, wait a minute, I didn't see this on the plan or.
Oh, okay.
I'm not,
I'm more
to be
worried
honest
about
with you, I
our
wouldn't know
other
what I was
schools.
looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a new budget?
I can recognize damage when I see it, that's what I.
Yeah, but when they're new
That's what I was
construction, I
used to.
wouldn't know what I was
Okay.
looking. I'm sorry, Rob, right?
Well,
Just being
here's my point
honest.
is, folks, we are the body that made the decision to spend this 51,700,000.
I understand
It's sort of like, I mean, we could say in Aaron we trust or in Gabe we trust, but,
Well, when it gets a little bit more put together, I think that would be a great idea.
okay. Any more questions for Gabe?
No, thank
Thank
you,
you,
Gabe.
Gabe.
As usual, Gabe, top notch
Yes.
presentation, thank you. Cool. Next item are the consent items, and I'll entertain a motion to approve 9A and 9B.
No, he's the one.
Me, you
Cool.
B
you
pulled.
pulled me, thank you.
Oh, that's okay, I'm because. 10.1
I make
so
a
just
motion-
9A.
I make a motion that we approve 9A.
Second.
Any discussion?
Who
Got
seconded
the
it?
motion, I seconded it.
Okay. Any discussion? Oh, you can't discuss
Can't
anyway.
discuss.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So,
9B and Gabe's gonna speak.
okay, so my reason for pulling it is I just, it caught me off guard there because, is that a completely different system, different operating system than all the other schools? Because what I'm concerned about is, are we gonna have to have an IT department that now has to have training in 2 different systems or 10 different systems? Is this the same system that's gonna go into Rancho Santana?
Yes, so we are migrating over to VoIP. So the district office, Calaveras AAA, Lad Lane, Rancho's at VoIP now?
Rancho Boy.
Rancho's now VoIP. So we have some that are, and we have some that need it. So the system that they have now is basically AT&T comes in to this kind of communications box, and that communications box basically turns into a digital signal. It goes out to individual phones at the site. Those are failing miserably. Include Gavilan Hills HDLA's is horrible. Sarah Vista's is not much better, so you'll be seeing one for Sarah Vista on the next board agenda. Basically, problems like not being able to call out. People can't call in, phones ringing randomly. around the school site, so
My question is are we all going, are all the schools
Yes,
gonna be the
yes.
same vendor,
They
same
will.
operating system and,
yes, they
And
will.
it's-
We're-
And it's supposed to be a very, very minimal impact on staff time.
Oh, good.
Whereas right now, they're
Yeah.
constantly at the schools that have the old system, trying to figure out how to get their tools straight.
There's, the support on those from the vendor is excellent. Everything is computer, everything is very easy. If we have a teacher who changes classrooms, just go online, click and move it, boom, done. It is very, very
Oh,
easy.
that's nice.
That is
It's,
nice.
yeah, it is a phenomenal system. We've had it here, this is I think our second year. And it's been wonderful. So we're getting trying to get all the schools onto it.
Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense.
it just takes some time, but HDL, Lake Evelyn Hills and Sarah Vista, they're at the point where we can't wait, we just have to do it.
Alright,
Thank you.
all right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve item 9B.
I will make a motion that we approve item 9B.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Now put your other hat.
All right, Gabe. Approval of the second interim budget. It's recommended that the board approve the 2019-20 second interim budget.
Yes, alright, so it's gonna take up a little bit of your time now on the second interim budget. So these are the basic assumptions that we use every time we do a budget. Not much change here, I have put in bold the big changes. So our unduplicated percentage has been changing. We expect it to be a little bit higher as our population is growing. However, the population, excuse me, the demographics we're getting in are not the same in terms of percentage of unduplicated. So that's actually dropping our unduplicated percentage to a little bit lower than we anticipated. So what we're looking at now is a decreasing unduplicated, which decreases the amount of supplemental and concentration grant we get, which is part of our LCFF revenue, which means that's gonna decrease our LCFF revenue a little bit. The biggest changes that we're gonna see are in the COLA in the out years, in 2021 and 21-22. Prior, the COLA for 2021 was set at 2.99, so they have reduced that to 2.29. So that is a large decrease for our district. The other piece is in the out year, it dropped from 279 to 271, which is a smaller decrease, but when you look at it in terms of it compounds on the prior year, that reduces that next year significantly. So here's what we're looking at for this year. $52.5 million in LCFF. On the restricted side, the $507,000, or I'm sorry, the unrestricted side, the $507,000 on the restricted side is actually SELPA, special education property tax revenue. Not much change in our federal revenues at about 3.6. Other state revenues have increased by about $750,000, and that is because we received money in from the state as unrestricted that's designed to be used for preschool. So we do get a large amount of money for that we're able to use to pay for our special education preschool that's being housed at the County Office of Education. So that's gonna reduce the amount that we're gonna have to pay them, which comes into the comes from the unrestricted general fund through a contribution to our special education restricted resource. Other local is roughly the same. Another large change is contributions have gone up significantly to special education because special education costs just keep increasing. We're identifying more students, and as a result, caseloads, we're having to spend more money to service those students. So here's kind of what we're looking at here, the amount of state aid, property tax, and EPA, that is our LCFF revenue, and then the other ones, federal, state, and local, obviously.
Yeah, historically, what have our property tax percentage been? What has it been?
So it's actually usually slightly lower, it is creeping up, we increased about roughly $2 million this year, so that's, that was even more than we had anticipated, so we went and took a second look and requested some information to make sure that it was in fact accurate, and it is. I mean, it just all the building, the property tax revenues coming in are starting to catch up with that, so we're seeing a large increase in that. However, the way that falls into the LCFF calculation doesn't mean we're getting more money, it just means we're getting more of our LCFF revenue from property taxes as opposed to state aid. So kind of how that works is through the LCFF calculation, the state says, okay, you get $52 million, and that's how much LCFF you get. So if you're only getting $17 million in property taxes, the other 35 is gonna come from state aid. Well, state aid and EPA, those two are the other pieces of that LCFF pie. So that's kind of how they come in and backfill to make sure that you get that 52. So if you're what they call a basic aid district,
Right.
your property taxes are way higher than that LCFF calculation,
Gotcha.
which unfortunately we're not in that position.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. So our general fund expenditures, we did see an increase in a few areas. Actually, all salaries and benefits have increased a little bit. A lot of that is actually to take into account Saturday Scholars and some of those other programs when we did over the short winter break. So we had to put all that stuff in there. And then a slight adjustment, also 0.5%, because when this was originally budgeted for first interim, we were projecting 2% increase on the HESTA end for the year, and it ended at 2.5%. So we did put that extra 0.5% in there as well. Books and supplies, relatively the same. Same thing with service and other operating expenditures went down a couple areas, but it did go up. Part of, and I'm in communication with PG&E about this right now, so part of one of my frustrations for the business department. So how it works with PG&E is they, you get a monthly bill and then occasionally you get a true up. Well, they made a couple of mistakes on some of our meters going back several years, so we've received a couple of bills where our electric bills are usually $12,000-$13,000. Over $90,000
Oh my gosh.
for true ups. So
Isn't it the school sites or?
school sites or the district wide.
They're just trying to get their money.
Yeah, well, you gotta pay for the lawsuit somehow, right?
Exactly.
So we are. I'm in contact with PG&E right now to find out what mistake was made and why.
And why are you telling us now?
Right, and why you're telling us now. They're adamant that, it was a mistake made, but you still owe the money, so pay us. So,
They should've
you
caught the
use the
mistake.
electricity, so you have to pay us for the electricity you used, so
You're like, but every month it's the same, why would it be, right?
yeah, well, that's the whole true up thing, so they charge you like a certain amount every month, and they do the calculation of how that works, and then they do a true up. What they should do is do a true up once a year. We've seen true ups every year,
Right.
and then all of a sudden we get these astronomical.
Is this on non-solarized properties?
We're all solarized.
No.
It is.
No,
Oh,
it's on the solar properties.
So that's how,
So that's why I'm in contact with them to try to figure
I
out
don't-
what's
I don't
going on with
understand
how
that.
all of this.
our contract for electricity is not with PG&E, it's with the solar company, isn't it? Like,
No, it's
No.
both. It's both. So how this, and just quickly, how it works is we get what we can from the solar, if for some reason we use more, or I'm sorry, if for some reason we don't use all that the solar provides, then we actually sell that back to PG&E. If solar isn't generating enough, then we actually have to pull from PG&E's grid and we pay PG&E for the.
And that's what
Doesn't
PG&E is saying, that our solar panels did not produce enough energy. They had, I assume that's what they're saying.
That's the question.
And then
I'd
do
like
they
to
charge
figure
us
out-
that triple the price?
That seems very strange to
Yeah.
me.
So
Especially since we don't use the electricity all year round.
right.
And in the summertime, when we use less of it, that's when the panels would produce the most. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me.
So,
It's doesn't sound right to.
Yeah, that's
So
ridiculous.
that's why we're.
They made a
do
mistake.
we monitor the solar performance real time?
We do not.
So, I mean,
We should.
when I was CFO of a company in Merced, we owned 150,000 acres of property, and we would have solar installations at various things to drive wells and pumps and things like that. But everything was online, and we could see daily, performance. That's how we know, cloudy day, we're buying more electricity. We also knew when the solar panels were to be cleaned, because, the applications just tell you.
The performance.
Theirs are not
Right, so,
that sophisticated, is my understanding, and in terms of being able to go read the meters and everything, they're not terribly responsive. I mean, these were purchased by basically an investment fund. So as long as they're getting their money, they don't really.
Oh
I think this is something
gosh.
for another meeting, we're gonna have to look into this.
yeah, I'm just wondering if we have to audit it, because it just doesn't.
Oh, no, yeah, we do, we are. We're just in the very beginning stages of trying to get information so that we can, know where to start with the audit. So we're just in the very beginning stages of that, and absolutely, we're
Well,
auditing it to
let's
find
keep
out.
that up.
Additional work.
Yeah,
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
oh, yeah, none of us can, so we're,
What's the total amount though that you said 90,000, is that total or is that 90,000 per site?
That was just 1 month's bill, and then we had another one 50-some thousand, another one 40-some thousand, and they're usually 12 to 13. So that's why we were, and every once in a while we'll get a true up that might hit 30 or 40. So the first one came and we're like, ooh, that's a high true up. Next one comes like, this is getting odd.
Who services our solar panels? Make sure they're clean, make sure they're functioning properly?
So that goes through the investment fund that purchased them, and that is a company called Generate Capital.
How often do they come out and do these things?
They only come out when something goes wrong that reduces the amount they produce, because we pay per kilowatt hour that they produce.
But
So they wanna make sure that they're running.
They don't clean them on a schedule, like once a quarter?
When you have dirty panels, you're losing
I've
money.
never seen them.
It's that simple.
Yeah, well, not so much in our case. So the prior people before Generate Capital bought them, never cleaned them.
Right.
So we were kind of, oh, hey, this is okay, don't clean it, because we weren't paying the higher per kilowatt hour through the solar. So we just all right, it's
Their panel.
that's their problem, we're not touching them.
Hmm.
Actually, we're not supposed to touch them, so
Right.
we left it alone.
Right.
When Generate Capital bought them, they replaced the broken panels, they cleaned everything up, and this was a little over a year ago. And now we're starting to see these ridiculous true ups. So
Which
something
makes
should be
sense.
better.
Yeah.
something is right. So something somewhere's wonky. We're right now working diligently to get to the bottom of
Somebody
this.
has some splaining to do.
Absolutely. So the other big thing in services and other operating, special education services. I mean, we're just constantly having to enter into new contracts for services for students who are coming in. So, the rest of it is pretty much the same. Our other outgo indirect costs remain about the same as well. So total of 42.67 on the unrestricted side, or 22.84 on the restricted, for a combined of about 65.5 million. So taking a look here, employee benefits and salaries, we're looking at a total of 89% of our unrestricted general fund goes to salaries and benefits, so, it's high, not because of the increases in some of the costs, especially in the benefits area with STRS and PERS. It's not terribly uncommon, for school districts right now.
There was no relief from the governor this year on reducing some of the amounts for the for STRS and
So it was brought down slightly, about a percentage point, and a little bit on STRS, a little bit more on PERS, which kind of carries forward a little bit. So it helped, but for that, this would probably be.
so it's in your calculation then?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So anything that, especially this year, everything for this year is obviously set in stone, so
Mhm.
it's all been taken into account. So here's the end result of all this. So we're looking at a deficit this year of about 2.3 million. That brings our reserve down to 7.8%, and that is after taking into account everything we got in, so the $750,000 we got in. Unfortunately, most of that got eaten up again by all those increases in costs on the other stuff. So that's where that leaves us. And here's our multi-year projection. So with that, we still have our increasing STRS and PERS, we still have our increasing health and welfare, which we did preliminarily find out that it's not gonna be as high. So the increases in health and welfare has been adjusted to something closer to what it's expected to be. But that's still leaving us with quite a bit of a deficit in the next couple of years. So we're looking at a 5.65% reserve at the end of 2021 and end of 21-22 at 5.14.
Can you clarify the deficit part? When you say deficit, I think minus?
Yes, minus, sorry.
Yeah.
So we are looking at a reduction in 2021 of about 1.8, and then in 21-22 about I'll have to go get my sheet of paper, but it's about 750,000 if I'm not mistaken. So there's still larger deficits. So that's something that we are working on. The all council, we've been sitting down kind of going through ideas to get that down to keep our reserves higher. So as we're working on that, you'll see a little bit more of that information if you haven't seen some of it already, come through to get that, to make sure that our reserves are a little healthier level. So with that, questions that you have about?
Well, I only have one question. I'm not arguing with the figures. The only one I'm still going back to our student population here. I don't see enough of an increase by you to 2022. It seems like with all these homes building, you're basically saying there's only gonna be 100 more students in the next 2 years, 3 years?
So
I don't quite get that. I don't understand that.
So that's been one challenge that this district's had for a while is really trying to project what our growth is gonna be. As we're seeing now, at the end of the year, we have 60 less kids as compared to 12 months ago. 60 less, we were at 5670 this time last year, and now we're at about 5610.
Picked up
So we, we're.
It's a statewide phenomenon and it's a local phenomenon. Public school enrollment in the state of California is declining. And
I'm so confused because then we talk about dropping portables, so.
It's, well, some of that is related to how we're looking at structuring schools next year. So if we're adding at some of the elementary sites, the upper grade 6, 7, then we're gonna need facilities to accommodate that. So that's where those portables would be, the need for those portables would be coming from. So really what I did here, there's a method we use to kind of project, and what you do is it's kind of cohort survival. So you take what you have today, you say, okay, well, the 8th grade's gone next year. Shift everyone over, say, okay, what were you getting, in your kindergarten TK? So you project adding those on. And then, you gain some and lose some in different grades through the year, so you kind of look at that historically and say, okay, this is where we think we're gonna be. We did have very large 7th and 8th grade classes, so as those are dropping out, it requires more in the K, TK, and more in the other grades coming in to make up for that. And while we are getting more students in the TKK and in the other grades, it's making up for it, but it's not adding to the total number because the 7th and 8th that are going out are so large. So that's been one issue. And doing it that way and looking at what Davis Demographics has done, which is, their numbers have come pretty close to what we've seen doing that method. This is what both Davis Demographics and that method came out with, was pretty much flat this and next year. But 21, 22, 22, 23, then you start seeing this hike because the 6th and 5th grades that will be dropping out aren't very big. You start seeing a lot more students coming in. So that's why.
The other reason to use the current year's ADA is that there's a protection for school districts. When a school district's ADA decreases, the state will fund you on the greater of prior year's ADA or the current year's ADA. So it's a protection for districts. If and when we have increases in enrollment, we'll see increases in revenue. The 21-22 number is the recommendation from Davis Demographics, but they didn't have the knowledge of the big awards home project that just came on board and some of the newer projects that are now getting started. So I think we'll see a change this time next year, once we have new numbers.
These will be,
We'll have the.
Yeah, these will be changed, and I'm, from what I'm seeing so far this year, I think we're actually gonna trigger the prior year funding this year. So we'll actually be funding the prior year AD, I think it's gonna come slightly lower this year.
Yeah, our attendance as of this week or last week, not attendance, I'm sorry, our enrollment is 5,609.
Yeah.
Which is, and our ADA there is 5,312, so they're counting on 94.7%.
Butts and seats.
ACA.
ADA.
What has it been, Kip? Kip, what has been our percentage for attendance?
Most recently 95.5.
That's a lot better.
But coronavirus.
I know,
is
we're
very-
just,
It's-
I-
yeah.
It's having a daily
Effect.
big impact.
don't you
Right.
think,
And the
though,
influenza B for real.
I was gonna say, don't you think the governor or that will have,
He's gotta,
yeah, if they're gonna
for
shut
major
down.
disasters, if schools have to shut down, fires and things of that nature, he was able to compensate districts for that.
Yes, and there are waivers as well, which, let's face it, if we start seeing mass school closings,
They
the
have
state
to.
will do, yeah.
They
What
have
They
what
will.
happens with the waiver is it changes the calculation, so instead of 180 days, you have 175 days or 170 days. What's different about the way that coronavirus has developed is, first of all, it happened here first on February 8th.
Right.
So it affected us immediately. It affected us the next day. We had 90% attendance the next day.
Wow.
And it has lingered for a month. So it's had a very
different impact than a fire, which will close schools for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, but not have a lingering cloudy effect. And then it's hard to know if we're in the beginning of it or if we're halfway through it or if we're at the end of it. If we're anywhere near the middle of it or at the beginning of it, then it's just gonna be worse. And the governor and the state superintendent of public instruction will need to work out a compromise for schools because all of our funding is based on ADA.
So is that your presentation for now?
Yes, unless there are any other questions or anything that,
We'll do a motion second, then we'll say discussion, then I'll say what I have to say.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget for, the second interim budget for 2019-2020.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? No. I have something to say, and I can't vote to approve this as it is right now because we are at the bottom, in terms of reserves now, and it's too close. The coronavirus and other things, well, the coronavirus just destroying the capital markets will have an impact on the state of California's tax revenues because we depend on capital gains, and the capital gains now are going to be very much shrunk. And I don't know how they're gonna mitigate that yet, but this is my worst fear because, we had a bunch of reserves 2 years ago and a year ago. And then we've done all these programs and the programs haven't been effective in terms of getting our enrollment up and our ADA up. And unfortunately, it's trade-offs that we have to, we always have to evaluate. And it's not this year's budget, it's the multi-year projections I'm sort of projecting going, I can't live there. I mean, life is good when you have reserves because you don't have to, think about cutting programs and cutting positions and things along those lines. I don't want to go back to where that becomes our main focus. And this proves that we are there.
I just have a process question, so if let's say the budget wouldn't be approved, what does that mean? How does that?
it's just the second
It's just the
intro.
second,
Yeah.
intro, so it's
It's
not
yeah, so it's,
impact wise, it's already been.
yeah, right.
She's just trying to
Send
understand.
update to
It's-
the changes that have happened.
Right, so really, what would be, original budget
Okay,
that's when,
Okay.
it's more appropriate to have those sorts of conversations of, making budgetary changes.
okay, thank you.
Well, I would like to say that there's a reason why these reserves went down. And most of it had to do with the state. Granted, in the past, we had a 12% reserve, but our district was a shambles. We had major problems that we had to address, and I mean major. I won't get into them, but I think you all know what they were. Those were expensive to fix. They should have been fixed before, but they weren't. We might have had a 12% reserve, but our district was going this way. So there's a reason why they went down. Now, in my opinion, what we need to do is start figuring out ways to start rectifying those things, starting with special ed. That was one of the reasons why it went down. Now that we've got it fixed, what can we do to cut those costs? That special ed is a major factor when it comes to cost to any district. I could go into some other areas, but I expected the reserve to go, it had to go down. We had a lot of problems to be fixed. And as far as I can see, we fixed a lot of them. Now, how we move forward with here, we're gonna have to make some decisions I agree, a 5% reserve is not good enough for the future. But I do think it's things we can work on. I also understand why those numbers are the way they are. And we, in my opinion, fixed a lot of issues that needed to be fixed. And there's no way to have done that without spending down. That's what reserves are for. Now, I'm not saying I'm happy with them at that level, but we need to fix them back up again. But I am not going to apologize for the things that we did
We have
to rectify some of the real issues at this school,
I was
in our district.
asking you to apologize, but you said the operative word there, because when we see these numbers, and that is when we are supposed to say, okay, how are we going to get them up? That's the part that's missing from this discussion that I'm trying to encourage, I guess is the way, because I vote up here like I vote in my own life and I vote in my career. And all I can say is, when we were paying 3 college tuitions, we sacrificed a lot of things and as a family and stuff, because it was more important to us to pay college tuitions and stuff, right? And I'm looking at this now and saying, you're right, we've spent a lot of money, but we've also, over the years, probably just not this year, but we've also made a lot of bad decisions. And, we had a lot of individuals that were in charge of things that we weren't checking on, or not we, the administration wasn't checking on. And you're right, that's why the reserves have to go down, but we do have to figure out, before I approve this budget, how are we going to get that up?
I agree 100%. Those are some of the things I think we need to talk about in closed session, not here.
So just so we're clear, this is just an update as to where we are in our current budget and the changes that were made. As far as the projections, I think I'm glad you're bringing that to all of our attention, because it should be brought to our attention. You and I, sat on this board for a little long, duration now to have seen kind of what's gone up and down and what are the key areas. For me, that's always been a key area because of where we came from and where we are right now. But it's all within reason, and I think, they've also mentioned what needed to be fixed. And I think Diego understands that's the whole purpose of why he's doing what he's doing moving forward. Because I think he's realizing too where the adjustments need to be made so that we're not sitting at a 5% moving forward, but that's looking at what we're gonna build for the future budget. Because right now it's set in cement, like he said, it's done. The money's been spent, the budget's been allocated, it's what we are going to move forward with in those decisions. So today, whether we vote yes or no, it's still what's in effect, it's still what's presented before us. What you're talking about is projections for next year and building the budget for next year. That, I agree. We need to have a good, strong recommendation as to how we're going to increase our reserves, but we can't do it right now.
Well, I guess what I'm pressing is I wish they had thought about because again, there is a reason the law says we have to look at multi-year projections, right? And it's exactly for this, and I'd rather approve multi-year projections that show us, improving than we're actually executing to those plans. Without a plan, we'll never get anywhere. So it's, again, it's just wanted you guys to know where this one is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we vote?
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept this.
We already did.
Okay.
So now I'll say, is there any more discussion? Okay, so we'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay. 4-1, Jesus. And because this is a special meeting, there is no other things on the agenda like announcements. So we will entertain.
So just as a decision made by another school district, they are canceling all large gatherings. So the meeting for Thursday, the last parent workshop has been canceled.
The migrant ed?
Yes.
So I'll tell you
So-
what, let's adjourn the meeting and then you and another board member can talk to Diego
Yeah,
about
Oh,
that.
I like to.
yeah.
So,
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0, Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Erica, do you have a couple?
The board,
Yeah.
is there anything
Do you have a couple minutes up?
So the board advised not to have
Kip,
any.
can you hang back for a couple minutes?
That was a big one.
So who are the two that are meeting at Rancho?
Rancho?
Our